This is how Sean Payton knew. And this is why I'm so confident that the Denver Broncos have found their franchise quarterback in Bo Nix. Sean Payton, no secret, comes from the Bill Parcells coaching tree. And when Parcells was coaching, he had a list of 11 basic commandments that he wanted his starting quarterbacks to operate under. And I imagine with Sean Payton being around Bill Parcells for so long, his list is probably similar, if not identical, to Bill's. So let's go ahead and bring in the Big Tuna's list here. And the first one is ignore others' opinions. Press or TV, agents or advisors, family or wives, friends or relatives, fans or hangers-on, ignore them on matters of football. They don't know what's happening here in this building. And I'm guilty of obviously making my own opinions and giving analysis on the public information that I have because that's literally my job as an analyst of the Denver Broncos. But I also know that it's not the complete full picture because there's no way in hell that Sean Payton's letting that information outside of the building. So that's why it's important for players and just individuals within that building to not pay attention to the outside noise, because not only can it affect your play on the field, but some of the stuff that's reported is just flat out not true, and that's by design. That's by the intention of the team. So at the end of the day, that's very important when you are a starting quarterback, is to not read any of these articles that are put out by the media or not watch any of these hot take artists on TV, because at the end of the day, and I say this as somebody who puts out that information, we're only working with what we have and what is public knowledge. So that's a big one, is ignore others' opinions. And I think Bo Nix has displayed a good job of not paying attention to the outside noise. And in fairness, Russell Wilson and other Broncos quarterbacks previous also did a pretty good job at that. But I think that's something that was instilled into Bo Nix's DNA week one of being a Denver Bronco, is the only opinion that matters is the ones that are inside this building. Number 2, clowns cannot run a huddle. Don't forget to have fun, but don't be the class clown. Cough Paxton Lynch, cough Drew Lock. Clowns and leaders don't mix. Clowns can't run a huddle. You see Bo Nix on the sideline. You see him in the huddle. His demeanor is all the same. He's very serious. He takes command of the huddle, and that's the big thing. You have to be the one who takes complete control and command of the entire operation. And if you're displaying that you don't take your job seriously, then I don't think any of the other guys in the huddle can take you serious as a leader. So this is a big thing, and it's very big on how Bo Nix conducts himself. Clowns cannot run a huddle. Fat quarterbacks can't avoid the rush. Number 3, a quarterback throws with his legs more than his arm. Squat and run. Bo Nix obviously does a pretty good job overall avoiding the rush with his legs. Sometimes he does create extra pressure, unnecessary pressure with his legs by bailing from clean pockets, but that's something I imagine is going to reduce as he gets better and better and learns the intricate ins and outs of the offense, where your outlets are in the passing game, so that way when defenses are bringing pressure, you don't just drop your eyes to the pressure and you're looking to beat that pressure with your legs. So it's a good mix here. You obviously want to be able to avoid the rush and be able to elude defenders with your legs, which Bo Nix can do, and that's a very important thing here. But also, you have to be able to know when to hang in the pocket and be able to pick apart the defense with your arm as well. And that's something that I think Bo Nix is getting better at as time goes on. He got better with it as the season went on last year, and there are already signs there that he's getting better at that in this phase of the offseason, which is very good news. Another thing that I want to talk about, a quarterback throws with his legs more than his arm. Another thing that means is using your lower body, using your hips, using your core to generate velocity on your throws. Sometimes you would see Bo Nix spraying throws, overthrowing guys, because he wasn't throwing with his hips. He was throwing with all upper body. That's why I want Bo, or I'm hoping Bo this offseason, went and sort of tweaked his lower body mechanics. I want him to throw in harmony. I want his core and his arm to operate all as one. Once Josh Allen was able to do that, that's how he fixed his inaccuracy, and that's how he became the Josh Allen that we know today. So that's something else. Throwing with your legs is very important. Being able to marry your core, marry your middle and lower body to your upper body is very important. So it's not just being able to run, it's also being able to throw with your lower body. That's what that means when a quarterback throws with his legs more than his arms. So that's something we've seen improvement with Bo Nix as the season went on last year. I want to see even more improvement there this year. But good, encouraging signs coming from a rookie quarterback. Know your job cold. This is not a game without errors. Keep yours to a minimum. Study. You think about Paxton Lynch. Again, I don't like bringing up these previous Broncos quarterbacks, but you're naturally going to make those comparisons. Lynch very famously wouldn't study his playbook, and he'd be up at 3 o'clock in the morning playing Madden. If you're going to do that, then you probably shouldn't be friends on Xbox Live with members of the Broncos media who can see what you're doing. Paxton Lynch was the guy who wasn't putting in that extra effort to know the complete ins and outs of his job. And that's something that Bo Nix seems to do really well. We hear that Bo Nix is one of the first guys in the building, one of the last guys out of the building. He watches a lot of film. That's all stuff that's really important. You've got to study all the intricate ins and outs of being a quarterback, especially if you're going to be a quarterback in a Sean Payton offense. So knowing your job and being able to study all the damn time is very important. And Bo Nix, without a doubt, has the work ethic to do that, and it seems that he is doing it, which is very, very good. Know your own players. Who's fast? Who can catch? Who needs encouragement? Be precise. Know your opponent. So, in terms of knowing your own players, as you get more chemistry with the guys, you'll know more and more what they do well, what they don't do as well, the strengths and weaknesses of certain players. You see Bo Nix this year in clips coming out of practice, coaching up Courtland Sutton on how he wants certain routes run. You see him kind of giving encouragement to some of his teammates on the sidelines. I've seen him a couple of times just watching in person after Troy Franklin would maybe have a bad drop. Bo Nix would go over there and encourage him. Or with the offensive line, it seems that the offensive line responds better to kind of when you get in their face a little bit. And Bo Nix, not afraid to do that. I saw him on the sideline at Broncos games many times, kind of getting in the face of his offensive line, getting all raw with them, telling him, we gotta go. I know Bo Nix doesn't cuss, but he was probably telling him something to the extent of, we gotta effing go, in kind of a clean way, you know. Bo Nix is a guy who is able to take command and be that vocal leader, and he caters his leadership style to each different person that he's dealing with. That's a sign of a really good quarterback. Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, all of these guys were so good at being able to tailor their leadership style to the different individuals that they were dealing with. Like with Tom Brady, for example, I can't imagine that he approached his leadership style with Gronk the same way that he did with someone like Julian Edelman or, you know, somebody like that. I imagine that they were completely different leadership styles, and seeing your quarterback not just having one leadership style that he deviates towards and rather changing it up with each different guy that he's dealing with, that is a very good sign that you can be the long-term leader and franchise quarterback of this team. Be the same guy every single day in conditioning, preparing to lead, studying your plan. It cuts it off right here, but basically, don't get too high, don't get too low. But at the same time, you have to know when to throw that out, essentially, and sometimes you have to be able to get in the face of your teammates and be that more vocal leader, or sometimes you need to take that step back, but you need to know when to apply each of those given situations. Russell Wilson was a guy, to his credit, that was basically the same all the time. He was always kind of even keel, never got too high, never got too low, but especially when the team was losing in 2022, that was sort of to the detriment of the team. Guys wanted Russell Wilson to speak up and be more of that vocal leader, and he just wouldn't do it. So with Bo Nix, seeing him working with his offensive line on the sideline, coaching them up, or coaching up his receivers, or hell, even yelling back at Sean Payton when Payton yelled at him in that Raiders game, those are all good signs that Bo Nix is an even keel kind of guy in the way that he conducts himself, but he's not robotic. He's not operating the same exact way no matter what the circumstances around him are. He's able to tailor the way he conducts himself to the situation that you're dealing with at the time. So I think that is another very important quality for sure. Number 7, throwing the ball away is a good play. Sacks, interceptions, and fumbles are bad plays. Protect against those. And this is what I feel like separates how teams evaluate players from how fans evaluate players. You look at the stat completion percentage, and a lot of fans cite completion percentage as, oh, this quarterback has a high completion percentage, so he must be a good quarterback. He must be an accurate quarterback. But completion percentage obviously gives you a bad grade on a play whenever you're throwing the ball away, when in reality, that's a good play. You're not taking a negative play right there. Sometimes a positive play is not having a negative play, and knowing when to throw the ball away when the play isn't there, not holding on to the ball too long and taking bad sacks, or throwing the ball into triple coverage and throwing bad interceptions, or holding on to the ball too long and fumbling after you get sacked. Those are all really bad things, and those are all things that offensive play callers cannot stand. The main reason why Russell Wilson is no longer a Denver Bronco is reason number 7 and also reason number 11, which we'll talk about in a second, but taking so many sacks that you're consistently putting the team in 2nd and long and 3rd and long. You're behind the chains all the time. It's just not a situation that you're going to have a sustainable offense in. So being able to stay on schedule and avoid those negative plays is huge. And Bo Nix did a pretty good job of that overall in his rookie season, of not taking bad sacks, throwing the ball away. All of that stuff is a sign that you have a good quarterback, because they know how to not take a bad play and turn it into a disastrous play. Learn to manage the game. Personnel, play call, motions, ball handling, proper reads, accurate throws, play fakes, clock. Don't you ever lose track of the clock. And these are all things that Bo Nix got better at as the season went on, as more was thrown onto his plate, as he started to master just the overall execution of the overall operation of the offense. Just being able to get the play call into the huddle, being able to get all the guys lined up and on the same page and in the right spot. The Broncos didn't do a whole lot of motions last year. I imagine that's going to increase next year, because I do feel like Bo Nix is going to be able to handle that. But also, again, just the verbiage, these long-winded play calls that Sean Payton has, mastering those is going to be the next thing that we see from Bo Nix in year 2. He's already talked about how that is starting to speed up for him, and he's gotten a lot better at that since last season. So I'm confident that that will continue to improve as the season goes on. Get your team into the end zone. Passing stats and touchdown passes are not going to be how you're going to be judged. Your job is to get the team in the end zone no matter how it happens, and that is how your team will be judged. So that's another thing that I feel like separates fan analysis and team analysis. Fans are going to look at touchdown passes to interceptions thrown. Oh, this quarterback threw this many touchdowns to this many interceptions, so that must mean he's a good quarterback. That must mean he's a bad quarterback. That is not a good way to evaluate how efficient your offense is. The way to evaluate how efficient your offense is how consistently are you moving the ball downfield. When you get into the red zone, are you scoring? And it doesn't matter if they're passing touchdowns, rushing touchdowns, the quarterback runs the ball in himself. It doesn't matter if it's any of that or if the running back running it in. All that matters is how well are you moving the ball downfield, and what's happening when you get in between the 20s, when you get to you get inside the 20s, when you get to the red zone. What's happening there? Those are the biggest metrics, in my opinion, to judge a quarterback. Are you getting into the red zone, and are you cashing in once you get down into the red zone? So those are all important things to evaluate. That shows up a lot more in tape than it does in the stats. And that's why I say it's so important to watch the tape as well as watching this, or as well as looking at the stats. I cannot talk today. It's so important to watch the tape as well as looking at the stats, so that way you can get a clear picture of what's going on, and you're not just looking at one metric or another metric, and you're only seeing a partial to the story here. So people who throw out these touchdown passes to interception stats, honestly, I can tell that you're not watching the games, because that's just not a good way to evaluate how you're performing, and that's not how teams evaluate your performance if you're a player. So getting into the end zone, getting into the red zone, and then cashing in once you get into the red zone, that is how you're ultimately going to be evaluated as a quarterback. Don't panic. When all around you is in chaos, you must be the hand that steers the ship. If you have a panic button, so will everyone else. Our ship can't have a panic button. In previous Broncos quarterbacks, you would see them sort of have that panic button. They would turn a bad play into an even worse play. They wouldn't be able to recover from these negative plays. Bo Nix does a good job, again, of keeping himself even keel, and he doesn't get too high and let these situations overwhelm him. When he makes a mistake, he does a good job of learning from that mistake, but he doesn't compound that mistake into another mistake, and he doesn't make the same mistake twice. So that's all a really good sign that Bo Nix isn't getting overwhelmed with everything that's being put on his plate, and he's taking the challenge, embracing it, and he's thriving in the chaos as opposed to completely collapsing and crumbling in the chaos. And number 11, and this is another big one for Sean Payton, no doubt, and arguably it's the biggest reason why Russell Wilson is no longer here. Don't be a celebrity quarterback. We don't need any of those. We need battlefield commanders that are willing to fight it out every day, every week, and every season, and lead their team to win after win. Let's just be honest here. You didn't have to be a football fan to know who Russell Wilson was. Even if you hadn't watched football, odds are you probably knew who Russell Wilson was. And that was a problem. Russell Wilson conducted himself like a celebrity. I will never forget the very first practice that he arrived for at OTAs, his first year as a Bronco. He shows up driving this big black Ford Bronco, walks out of there wearing his own jersey, and it legit looked like he was arriving on the red freaking carpet. The whole offseason that year was just a social media circus. You compare that to Peyton Manning's first day on the job as a Denver Bronco. Derek Wolfe told the story about how Peyton showed up driving this dad-style car, like a Buick or something like that, wearing a button-down collared shirt, nice shoes, nice slacks, and came with his briefcase in hand, ready to work. They didn't make some rah-rah big deal about it on social media, and he wasn't conducting himself like a celebrity. And let's be honest, when Peyton Manning got here, it was the exact same thing. You didn't have to be a football fan, and you probably knew who Peyton Manning was. So yeah, man, there's a big difference between how these quarterbacks who are famous conduct themselves. And Russell Wilson, I would argue, was more of a celebrity when he got to Denver than he was a quarterback. Yes, Peyton Manning was a celebrity in his own right, but he didn't conduct himself that way. He conducted himself as the battlefield commander of the Denver Broncos for the 4 seasons that he was here. And that's the biggest thing with Sean Payton, I would imagine, is he does not want a celebrity quarterback that every time something happens off the field, it's going to make its way into the building. You know, being on the red carpet with your supermodel famous wife, or Sierra being a singer, you know, just your super famous wife. All that stuff kind of wears down on the team over time, and your teammates don't feel like you're one of them. Your teammates almost feel like you're superior to them, or you act like you're superior to them. And that's just not okay, man. Obviously, Russell Wilson also having his office and getting all that special treatment here in Denver that he got, Bo Nix doesn't do any of that crap. I can guarantee you that if you don't know football, you don't know who Bo Nix is, and Sean Payton wouldn't have that any other way. So, this list right here, Bo Nix checks pretty much all of the boxes. That is why I so strongly believe that Bo Nix is the franchise quarterback for this team. And I imagine this is the very rubric that Sean Payton used when evaluating quarterbacks in the 2024 draft. And this is how he determined that Bo Nix was his guy, because he checks almost every single one of these boxes. Alright guys, let me know in the comments section below, out of all of these, what do you think is the biggest key to being a successful franchise quarterback in the NFL? What is the one commandment out of these 11 that you really take to heart and really use the most when evaluating a quarterback? Drop those comments down below, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts, as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video, as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are both free and easy ways to show your support. It helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out, and it helps us get seen by more and more members of Broncos country, just like you and me. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.